Before, during, and after World War I, racism and discrimination was a huge problem. Black Canadians and First Nations people were not respected, even though they deserved it just as much. First Nations children were sent to awful residential schools to learn to be white. It was terrible. They were sexually abused and killed. Those who survived are still traumatized. Black and Asian immigrants were considered enemy aliens and were forced to be internees and work in harsh conditions for nothing. Once, a Chinese engineering student, Chuck Lee, was denied all the jobs he applied to just because he was Asian, not because he lacked the requirements. Canada then issued the Chinese Immigration Act, which excluded Chinese people from immigrating to Canada. Even immigrants from Germany were made out to be an enemy alien just because of their origin. This is a period of decline, as we are moving away from being a country that supports equal rights and justice for everyone. The economy during World War I had fallen apart. It was pretty much ruined. There was not enough funds to support the war, and Canada had already surpassed its budget of $740 million. So to help solve this issue, Borden issued the Income Tax Act, which forced everyone to pay a tax to the government. If you fail to do so, then you would be fined $100 for every day that you don't pay, to upwards of $10,000, which is substantial considering the average income per family is about $3,000 yearly. Many workers were not making enough money to live off of, therefore not enough money to pay the new income tax. This is a period of decline because people were suffering economically and including the government. The Canadian troops needed reinforcements, and after all the death and despair, no one was exactly enthusiastic about serving in the war anymore. But the need for reinforcements was urgent, and the soldiers were counting on the Canadian government. So because no one was volunteering, Prime Minister Borden announced the Military Service Act, which forced all eligible men to serve in the war. But Borden's term as Prime Minister was coming to an end, and in order for the bill to be passed, he needed to be re-elected. That meant 400,000 more men, but most were exempt for reasons like medical conditions and being needed at work. The conscription caused major tensions between the English and the French. The French felt they were being forced to fight for something that was not even theirs. This is a period of decline, as hardly any reinforcements were sent anyways, and the French-English relationship was shattered. Housewives had a very hard job, so many things to do every single day. Most had to do it all alone. Fortunately, new technological advances made things easier for the housewives. Things like refrigerators kept the food cold for them, instead of having to change the ice every day. And the invention of sewing machines made those material projects quicker. And of course, because men like to make lives difficult, they just assumed these technologies made it so that the woman could just do more work. However, the invention of radios was helpful, since they could tune into society while they did their chores. This is progress for women, as they didn't have to work so hard, therefore improving their mental health. Mental health was completely disregarded back then, and you were often just referred to as crazy. When the men went to war, that opened up a lot of job positions for the women to fill to help support the war. With another chance to show their hard work and determination, this showed people that women did have a place in this country. Unfortunately, when the men returned from war, they had expected to return to their jobs, but they were occupied by the women. Of course, the men did deserve the jobs after everything they had just done for our country, but didn't the women deserve them too? They stepped up to the challenge and worked 14-hour days only to return home to do the household chores. The women were no less capable than the men, and I think the men knew that too. This is progress for the women, as they now could finally hold a working position. After Jeremiah Jones saved his entire unit in the war, it earned black men the right to be in a white man's army. Of course, that's just passive-aggressive racism, but, at least they were given something. Unfortunately, not much happened after that, but slow steps towards racial justice would start to happen. It is still something we fight for today. Racism is a huge problem during this whole time period and every period to come. We have to appreciate the things that help us grow and continue to fight for what we know is right. Something that helped contribute to a lot of the progress in Canada is the mining industry in the 1920s. It was booming. Quebec soon became an important source of minerals for most of the highly developed areas of North America because of the development of the mining industry, which went hand in hand with huge industrial expansion elsewhere. The minerals that were mined would be later used in the invention of new technologies like appliances and radios, which improved the day-to-day lives of society. Plus, the demand for these raw Canadian materials was rising from other countries. In the early 1920s, the Canadian economy started in a depression from the war. People were just barely getting on. Many returning soldiers no longer had a job, as it had been filled by women. However, the economy started to improve in the mid-1920s. When the economy started to slowly get better, people got better too. This helped make the 1920s a period of innovation, new discoveries, and fun. But not everything was so great. There were downsides to the 20s, such as the racism that divided us. On May 24, 1918, women were finally allowed to vote in the election. This drastically influences the outcome of the election, as now a whole other population can have a say. Now that women have the franchise, it would only create a domino effect from here. Women can get better education. Women can work for higher wages. Women can be free. Women are not objects. All these ideas can be supported by all the work that women did for the war effort. Many women volunteered as nurses to help other injured soldiers. They worked under harsh conditions and extreme weather, but they were supporting their country and proving their rightful worthiness in Canada. Many nurses died on the job from these harsh conditions or enemy attacks, such as May Bell Sampson and Catherine MacDonald. As for women that were not directly involved in the war, many stepped up and went to work and filled the positions that the men would. This created a lot of work for them, but they pushed through. Lastly, in this time period, we started to get hope for our Constitution in the near future. We haven't got that statute yet, but we are on our way. This is giving Canada hope. Hope can help us to be better and push us to achieving our goals. With this new mindset, this gives Canada a bit more independence from Britain and the ability to make more of our own decisions and be our own country.